I don't see anything yet from a guest standpoint. Hi, Harry. I don't. I'm on my computer where I'm logged in as a guest. I don't see anything yet.
Nothing. I think we are
No.
live. Yeah.
Are we sure? You got someone to confirm that?
Yes, confirmed it.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 16 people. Go ahead.
Alrighty. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar for today. Got some exciting content for you. Our plan is to kick off about 11:03 Eastern time. So that's about, what's that? 8:03 if you're on the Pacific time, or later in the afternoon if you're in Europe. So bear with us a few minutes while the others join and we'll get started. If you're not familiar with the platform that we're using today, just have a click around. That we do have a chat session. So later on, we'll be taking questions. So if you think of anything along the way, go and type those into the chat and we'll do our best to get to those at the end of the webinar. Good morning, good afternoon if you just joined. As I said a couple of minutes ago, we will kick off about 11:03 Eastern time. So just after, so 8:03 if you're on Pacific time zone. And so give us a couple of minutes to let other people join and we'll get started. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who have just joined us, welcome to our webinar today. Give us another minute. We'll get started about 11:03 Eastern time. In the meantime, if you've not used this platform before, go ahead and click around, make sure you know where the chat is. We will be asking for questions or taking questions later in the session. So if you've got a question as we're going through the content, type it in the chat and we'll do our best to get to it at the end. Alrighty, so I've got 11:03, so I think we're going to get started. So hello everyone, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. If you're anything like me, a webinar pops up in your calendar and the first reaction is it going to be worth my time or shall I just skip it? Most webinars either stay too theoretical or they give you some ideas that are exciting for a few minutes, but probably by Monday morning, you still don't know how you're going to put it into practical use. So by the time I wrap up today, or we wrap up today, I think you'll be glad that you joined us. So just a quick point of administration before we get started. After we wrap up the formal part of the agenda, we will transition to a Q&A session. So in anticipation of that, if you can think of any questions as we go, please do post them in the chat and we'll do our best to get to them in the Q&A segment later on. So today's session is not about buzzwords or some trendy new growth framework. Today, we want to help you rethink how modern B2B growth actually scales today, especially at a time where traditional distribution channels are becoming more expensive, less efficient, and harder to sustain. Because whether we realize it or not, the way most companies are growing today is slowly breaking. You increase ad spend and efficiency drops. You produce more content, but reach doesn't grow proportionately. You push more outbound, but buyers are harder to engage than ever before. And eventually growth teams hit this invisible ceiling where effort keeps increasing, but output doesn't scale in the same way anymore. And that's really what today's session is all about. Not just about identifying the problem, but understanding what leading B2B companies are starting to do differently. Now, before we dive in, let me quickly introduce myself. I'll also introduce EvonSys, the company that I work for, and our products that we're going to be talking about today, which is called People Social. So my name is Andy Elliott, and I'm Vice President of Product Strategy at EvonSys. EvonSys is a technology services company headquartered in Delaware in the United States. We have a global operation, and I'm excited to be part of a team that's bringing exciting new products to market. Now, later in the webinar, we will be showcasing our product called People Social. And People Social is our product for helping organizations maximize B2B growth through an employee-led marketing distribution engine. But more to come on that later. In the meantime, I'd like to ask my colleague and People Social product manager, Supriya, to introduce herself. So, Supriya.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Supriya. I'm the product manager for the system People Social. So if anything goes wrong today, it's on me.
Well, let's hope
Thank you
that
for
doesn't
joining.
happen. Let's hope that doesn't happen, Supriya. So a big part of my role involves working very closely across different functional groups, across product sales, growth and customer facing teams. And over the years, one thing has become very clear. Different companies may have different products, they may have different markets and different go-to-market motions, but the growth challenges they're facing today are becoming surprisingly familiar. And that's exactly what led us to rethink how distribution should actually work in a modern B2B growth environment. So as we go through this webinar today, I want you to keep a couple of things in mind. Don't just listen to this as just another marketing concept. Think about your own organization. Think about how your team currently drives growth, what channels you depend on, what's getting harder to scale, and where you're starting to feel the friction. Because the chances are a lot of what we talk about today is going to feel very familiar. Next slide.
So let's start with the core problem, shall we? For most B2B companies today, distribution is becoming increasingly inefficient. And this isn't because companies suddenly have weak products or bad teams. In fact, most organizations already have really strong products, capable marketing teams, clear positioning, and quite a sophisticated go-to-market motions. But despite all of that, growth is getting harder because the channels we've traditionally depended on are no longer scaling the same way that they used to. If you look at most B2B growth engines today, they rely heavily on paid acquisition, outbound, content marketing, campaign based distribution. And to be clear, none of these are really going away, but the economics around them are changing dramatically. You increase ad spend, your CSE goes up. You scale outbound, your response rates go down. You produce more content, but organic visibility keeps shrinking. And at the same time, buyer behavior itself has changed. Today's buyers are more informed, more skeptical, harder to influence through direct promotion. They don't just trust brand messaging the way they used to, right? Instead, they research quite independently, consume content from multiple sources, validate through peers, and engage over much longer buying cycles, which means growth teams are now dealing with multiple pressures simultaneously: rising acquisition costs, declining efficiency, slower buyer journeys, and fragile pipeline generation. And one of the biggest problems underneath all of this is dependency. Most companies today heavily depend on channels they don't truly control, right? Because the platforms change, the algorithms change, ad cost fluctuates, and visibility becomes quite unpredictable, which means the pipeline becomes fragile. The moment spend drops, your momentum drops with it. Next slide.
And this is where most companies unintentionally make the problem worse. Because when growth slows down, the default assumption is usually we just need to push harder. So what happens? Companies increase ad budgets, they hire more SDRs, they launch more campaigns, they add more tools, and they increase outbound activity. And on the surface, this all feels very logical because activity creates the feeling of progress. More spend, more outreach, more campaigns, and more dashboards. But here's the problem. All of these actions are still operating inside the same system that's already becoming inefficient. So instead of solving the issue, companies end up amplifying the existing inefficiency. For example, when you increase ad spend today, you don't always get proportional growth anymore. Instead, CPCs rise, audience saturation kicks in, conversion efficiency declines, and the same thing also happens with outbound. More SDRs don't automatically mean more pipeline because buyers today are overwhelmed with outreach. Everyone sounds familiar. Everyone is automating. Everybody's trying to capture people's attention. So teams end up doing significantly more work for smaller returns. And then comes the next layer, more tools, automation tools, AI tools, sales tools, and content tools. But tools alone don't fix a structural limitation. If the underlying system is weak, adding more tools just adds increased operational complexity, and eventually companies hit what I call a growth ceiling. And this is the point where effort keeps increasing, investment keeps increasing, but results stop scaling proportionately. And this eventually leads to a critical realization that the problem is not your team, and it's certainly not the effort or a lack of effort. The problem is the system itself. Next slide, please.
So instead of asking, how do we push harder, the better question becomes, what if your biggest growth channel already exists inside your company? Because when most teams think about distribution, they immediately think externally, right? Like ads, SEOs, outbound, partnerships. But there's another channel most organizations massively underutilize, their people. So when we say people, we don't just mean employees internally. We mean employees as distributed networks. Every employee already has industry connections, peer relationships, professional credibility, and an audience access, especially on platforms like LinkedIn. And collectively, those networks are often significantly larger and more trusted than a company page itself. The interesting part is people trust people more than they trust brands. Um, that's why, employee shared content consistently drives higher engagement, stronger trust, and significantly wider reach. Next slide.
So what we're really talking about here is a fundamental shift in how modern B2B growth operates. For years, most companies have relied on campaign-driven growth. You launch campaigns, generate spikes, you push ads, and create temporary visibility. And then you repeat the cycle again the next quarter. But most modern growth is shifting away from short-term bursts towards continuous distribution. And there are four major shifts happening here. First, we're moving from campaign execution to audience building. So instead of creating temporary attention, companies are now building long-term visibility and familiarity over time. Second, we're shifting from paid reach to influence. Now, paid reach buys attention, of course, but influence earns trust, and trust compounds far more powerfully over time. Third, we're moving from brand-led communication to people-powered reach. Instead of relying only on a centralized company voice, distribution becomes decentralized through employees and networks. And finally, we're shifting from campaign-based visibility to always-on distribution, which is a significant change. While campaigns create spikes, systems create consistency, and consistency is what compounds in modern B2B growth. The companies that understand this early will grow faster and more cost effectively, and certainly more sustainably than companies who rely purely on paid amplification. Next slide, please.
So now the obvious question becomes, how do you actually make this work operationally? Because without structure, this simply becomes yet another initiative that probably dies after a couple of weeks. To make employee power distribution scalable, you need a system, and that system has four core parts. First is content, not just any random content, but and not disconnected posts, but centrally created ideas designed to travel across teams and individuals. The second is people. Employees shouldn't feel forced into participation. The goal is to remove friction so participation feels natural. The third is reach. Instead of relying purely on paid visibility, reach compounds organically through multiple employee networks. And fourth is measurement, not just vanity metrics and not likes, but actual business outcomes like conversations, inbound interest, pipeline influence, even revenue contribution. And the most important thing is these four pieces work together. Content enables people, people expand reach, reach creates visibility, and measurement validates that impact. That's what transforms this from activity into a scalable growth engine. Next slide.
Now, here's the interesting part. Most companies actually recognize this opportunity, but most still fail when trying to implement it. Why? Because they approach it casually. They say things like, let's ask our employees to post more. Let's encourage some LinkedIn activity. Let's share content in Slack. And for the first week or two, there may be some employee participation, but then everything just disappears because encouragement is not a system. Without structure or ownership, workflows, and measurement, participation will always fade over time. Employees already have full-time jobs after all, and if it feels like extra work, it's going to get deprioritized immediately. And that's the biggest misconception that companies make. They think the issue is motivation, but it's not. The issue is enablement. If you can reduce friction, participation becomes natural. If you increase friction, however, participation disappears. That's why successful employee distribution programs are never just accidental, they are operational systems. Next slide, please.
So, everything we've discussed until now sets the foundation for the rest of today's session. Because from this point forward, we want to make this practical and not theoretical. So, here's what we're going to walk through together. First, we'll show you how the system actually works in practice through a live walkthrough. Second, we'll break down how measurement connects this directly to pipeline and business outcomes. Third, we'll show how this complements existing channels like ads, SEOs, and outbound instead of replacing them. Fourth, we'll look at how content can scale across teams without multiplying effort. And finally, we'll talk about employee activation in a way that feels natural and sustainable. The goal here isn't just understanding the concept, the goal is helping you walk away with something you can actually implement inside your own organization. Next slide. And now, the final piece that makes all of this scalable is measurement. Because if you can't measure impact, it becomes difficult to sustain participation. Most teams today still measure social activity using vanity metrics like likes, impressions, views. And while those metrics show activity, they don't show business impact. What really matters is pipeline influence, your engagement from target accounts, revenue contribution over time. The moment distribution becomes measurable against business outcomes, it stops being just social media. It becomes part of the growth engine itself. Next slide, please. So, up until now, everything we discussed has been the strategy behind people power distribution. But now comes the most important part, the execution. Because ideas only matter if they can actually work inside real teams and real workflows, right? So, what we want to do next is make this tangible. We're going to walk you through how content flows through the system, how employees actually participate, how distribution happens operationally, and how all of this connects back to measurable growth. And while a lot of employee advocacy discussions stay theoretical, we wanted the session to be practical. So instead of just talking about the framework, let's actually show you what it looks like in action. Let me go ahead, share my screen. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. Andy?
Yep, we see your screen, Supriya.
Okay, great. So enough of the frameworks. Let me show you what this actually looks like when it's running inside a real organization. What you're about to see is People Social, the platform we've built to operationalize everything we just talked about. I'm going to walk you through three perspectives here: what an employee sees, what your marketing team controls, and what leadership gets to measure. Yeah? There are a couple of ways to log into the application with username, password, or with an SSO. Let me log in. Here you go. Let's start where your employees start. I'm going to go in as a contributor. That's what we call here on People Social. When someone on your team logs into People Social, this is their homepage. The feed section right here. Let it load. Yeah. So the feed section right here presents a curated feed of content that's been created, approved, and queued by your marketing team. No Slack message saying, "Hey, can you please share this?" No digging through Google Drive either. Here's what's ready for you today. Let me pick a post. Probably I'll pick this post. You select the target platform that you want to post in, select the brand, and just a click, and it's posted on the employee's LinkedIn profile. It probably takes less than 30 seconds, lesser time than brewing a cup of coffee. And this is exactly what we mean by, minimalizing the friction for employees to share content that's already approved and queued up by the marketing team. Not we just sent a nice email asking people to share, but a workflow that really works, right? Now let me flip this a little to see what the marketing team side looks like. This is where your content operations actually live. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to be logging in as somebody from the marketing team. Uh oh. Here you go. So somebody from the marketing team would log in as a publisher. That's what we call on People Social. Here's the content creation workflow. Your team drafts a post. Let's see what we need to share. Select the brand. You could select all the target platforms that you want to post on. Let's say for now, let's go with LinkedIn. Select the priority of it, and add any media type that you'd like. Let's see what I have. Okay. Okay. And let's do something. Let's also schedule this post. We'll schedule it for, say, tomorrow. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. All right. You review the post, submit for approval. So, what really happens now? With this approval step configured, it the post drops into an approval queue before it even reaches your employees. So now let me log out and log back in as a manager. You see an approval queue here. Yeah, it's right here. Plenty of those. So what this means, so the manager could go ahead approve it or reject it with a message that goes back to the publisher who created the content in the first place. So the minute the manager approves this, this goes on to the social media, and if there is a schedule configured, it sticks to the schedule. So basically, no content goes out in the outer world without approval. And this is exactly the answer to something that we keep hearing constantly. We tried employee advocacy, but someone posted something off brand and it became a whole thing. That can't happen here. The approval layer means your marketing team is always the last checkpoint. And let's see what this is. So scheduling is where the compounding effect really starts, right? You batch your content on Monday, and it drips down across the week. If employees see fresh content every time they log in, the system keeps flowing even when no one is actively managing it that day. And this is exactly what we call the always on distribution. It's not a campaign, but it's a pipeline that runs continuously. And here's where some of the leaders in this call would really like to lean in, because what I'm going to show you now is the measurement layer. For every piece of content shared through People Social, we are tracking reach, clicks, and engagement across your employee network in aggregate. You can see which content is performing, which teams are driving the most distribution, and where advocacy is actually generating inbound interest. And another thing, now here's a piece that changes employee behavior. This is the leaderboard. a real time ranking of your most active advocates across the organization. You can see who's sharing, how much reach they're generating, and how they rank across departments. Why does this matter? Because when sharing has visibility, right, it becomes a behavior that people actually do. Nobody shares content into a void, right? But when your top advocates are recognized, that too publicly inside the platform, that's the incentive structure that makes advocacy sustainable. And we've been seeing this repeatedly even within our own organization. The leaderboard is one of the highest engagement features for employees. And for leadership, this dashboard answers the question you should always be asking. Is this actually working? Versus, did people share? This leaderboard answers it. And I want to show you one last thing. um, and this is for the people from operations on this call. One of the biggest reasons employee advocacy programs die isn't lack of enthusiasm at launch, it's the rollout. Because let's be honest, I mean, getting 500 or 2000 or even 2500 employees set up, configured, and active on a new platform, that's an IT project in itself, right? That's 3 months of back and forth and adoption drag. So People Social automates this process. The tenant onboarding or the account onboarding is automated end to end. So when your organization signs up, an account is created automatically. The system handles workspace setup, like connecting your social media. There are clear instructions, uh, creating brand pages, defining your departments, configuring SSO. So as an employee of your organization, they can either log in through username and password, or by leveraging the active directory configured within your organization. And People Social leverages that. If you configure the SSO, so employees can directly log in through SSO. Or even leaderboard setup, like setting up your the scores for your reactions, comments. What score should a new content have? How do you define a streak? Also, how you want to define your badges, all of this. So everything, everything's set up right here. um, the speed from we decided to do this to employees are actually sharing is the biggest predictor of whether the program takes hold or not, right? Fast onboarding means momentum, and momentum means adoption, and adoption really is the whole game, right? So that's the system we've built. An employee experience so frictionless, it takes seconds. A content engine your marketing team controls completely. Measurement that makes advocacy a real growth metric, not just a feel good initiative. And onboarding that gets you live fast enough to maintain momentum. I'm going to stop sharing. You could go ahead, share your screen. So, everything you saw just now is all live. It's not really mock up. As we continue building this ecosystem, the focus is very simple: make participation easier, make distribution broader, and make impact more measurable. That's where a few exciting developments come in. First is the mobile app experience across iOS and Android, because participation shouldn't really depend on someone sitting at their desk. We want employees to access content anywhere, share quickly, and participate naturally throughout the day. Second is expanding beyond LinkedIn and Facebook through Twitter or X integration, because modern distribution shouldn't live inside a single platform. Third is AI assisted content creation, because one of the biggest frictions we've seen on a platform like this is content generation. So, AI assisted content generation is focused on reducing this friction even further. And finally, ROI visibility, uh, where we've planned a few fantastic features that are going to come in the pipeline, along with the ones that I just showed you. It's going to be very soon. So everything on the roadmap, the mobile app, AI content creation, ROI calculator, is being built on top of the system I just showed you. Because ultimately, leadership teams want to understand how this connects to growth. Next slide.
Thanks, Supriya. Great demo. So if companies truly commit to this approach, the impact becomes much bigger than just social engagement. The first major shift is pipeline resilience. Growth becomes less dependent on a single paid channel. Second, trust increases dramatically because buyers consistently trust people far more than they trust brands. Third, visibility compounds. Instead of one company page trying to carry distribution, you now have multiple employees amplifying ideas continuously. And fourth, dependency on paid reach starts reducing over time, not because ads disappear, but because organic distribution becomes significantly stronger. And this is really the key point. Modern B2B growth is no longer just about spending more, it's about distributing smarter. Next slide, please.
So to close today's session, I want to bring everything back to just one core idea. Most companies today are trying to scale campaigns, but campaigns alone don't compound. Systems do. And what we discussed today is really about building a distribution system where content flows consistently, where employees participate naturally, where visibility compounds over time, and where growth becomes a little more sustainable. Because long term growth doesn't just come from isolated bursts of effort, it comes from consistently reaching the right audience through trusted networks over time. So, if this approach resonates with how you're thinking about growth, we'd love for you to continue the conversation with us. You can explore the platform further, experience the workflow firsthand, or connect with our team to see how this could fit inside your organization. And more than anything, we hope today's session gave you a different perspective on what scalable B2B distribution can actually look like moving forward. Um, Looks like we have a few questions here from the audience. Can we take them now?
Yes, guys. Uh, Thank you both, first of all. We actually received quite a few questions on the DM through the session. So I thought this would be a better opportunity to address some of the questions. Andy, I'm going to start with you on the first few questions, then we'll bring in Supriya as well. So the first question we received on the DM is, how do you get employees to consistently participate without making it feel forcible?
Okay, yeah, a good question. So the biggest mistake I think companies make is assuming that participation is a motivational problem. Most employees I find are actually willing to engage. They just don't want another task added to their already rather large workload. So the key is making it easy for them and reducing friction. Instead of asking employees to create content from scratch, give them something to start from. Give them relevant ideas, give them context, give them content, and just let them personalize it to match their own style. The easier we make it for them, the easier participation becomes, the more natural it will be, and the more sustainable it will be over the long term.
Nice, thanks for that, Andy. And one more for you is, can smaller B2B companies benefit from this approach, or is it mainly suited for larger organizations?
No, I think this scales to any organization. So absolutely, smaller companies can participate and benefit from what People Social has to offer. So it isn't really about company size. It's about activating the employees that you have, activating the trusted professionals that work for you, and leveraging their networks. Smaller companies often have an advantage here because they're looking for leverage, not just bigger budgets. Now, when employees consistently share valuable insights, even a small team can create visibility that far exceeds what their marketing budget alone could achieve independently. So, yeah, for sure, smaller companies can certainly benefit here.
Well said, Andy. Thanks. And the last one for you is, how do you measure ROI beyond likes, impressions, and engagement metrics when it comes to People Social?
I think Supriya talked about this and measurement as part of her presentation earlier. But we look at business outcomes rather than vanity metrics. So that includes inbound conversations, engagement from target accounts, requests for demos, pipeline influence, and ultimately, of course, the ultimate measure is impact on revenue over time. So likes and impressions are good. They tell you something has happened, but the ROI metrics you really want to consider is those that contribute and measure your contribution to growth.
Great insight, Andy. Thanks for that. Supriya, I would love to bring you into the conversation now, because we have received 2 or 3 execution-focused questions as well.
Sure.
The first one is, why do most employee advocacy initiatives fail after the initial excitement?
Oh, nice. Good one. So, most initiatives fail because they're treated as campaigns instead of systems. A company asks employees to post, people participate for a week or two, and then activity drops off. So, without workflows, ownership, enablement, and measurement, participation becomes inconsistent. So, the most successful programs are operationalized and not really improvised.
Nice, thanks for that. And the other one is, how do you guys maintain authenticity while ensuring employees stay aligned with the company message?
Yes. So, see, the goal here isn't to give employees scripts, right? The company provides direction, maybe key themes and content ideas, but employees add their own perspective and their own voice. That's actually where the value comes from. Personalizing the content. You get consistency in messaging without really losing authenticity. The core messaging uh, stays the same, but it gets personalized from one employee to the other. Yeah.
Thanks, Supriya. And finally, last question that we could answer is, how quickly can companies expect to see results from a program like People Social?
Ah, I can take this. Um, See, typically engagement and reach improve fairly early, but the bigger impact comes over time, because as employees consistently share content, visibility increases, the trust builds, and audiences become more familiar with your brand. So the strongest results come from consistency and not really individual posts.
Cool. Thanks for the insight, Supriya. I guess it was a wonderful session from both of you. And if I guess we have also have some more questions to answer, but we'll probably make sure we'll write back to you guys over LinkedIn DMs and as email as well. Thanks for joining the session, and hope you all try out the platform. Please sign into peoplesocial.io. Try out the platform. We also offer 30-day free trial. If you guys feel any concerns, please come and book a call with our AE. So feel free to reach out anytime to the product team, to the sales team, to get to know about people social employee advocacy. We are much more happy to answer all your questions and doubts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for joining.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.